in this formation when you have a 4-2-2-2. So narrow, and then it creates the defense to be so narrow as well. Space out wide, exploiting it with the right timing, runs in the box, leads to a successful attack.
Tobin, we've just watched a really interesting game between Pachuca and Salzburg, and you highlighted many themes throughout the game. But do you want to tell us a bit about what you saw, even just between the two teams and across the match, and then we can dive into the first theme that you saw?
Yeah, of course. I really enjoyed analyzing this game. I think it was a lot of fun. In particular, we saw Salzburg in a very unique in-possession shape in a 4-2-2-2, which was really fun to analyze, and I think it forced Pachuca to be very, very narrow as well. So in this one clip in particular, what we see is them within their build-up kind of establish the shape from the beginning, keeping their 6s, their 10s, their 9s super narrow. But in this clip in particular, I think there's a couple different relationships that we want to look at. First off, the relationship of the 2 9s. We see the 2 9s for the majority of the match really occupying the center backs of Pachuca. And what that did was, and they kept them relatively narrow, and they had to keep them so honest. So we saw them occupying the 2 center backs, and then what we saw, the 2 10s staying equally as narrow and pretty close to the 9s. Pretty much during the buildup, what we saw is almost the whole entire team fitting within the width of the center circle, which was just crazy. And then of course we get these beautiful areas on the width of just green grass. And what we'll see also is the height. The importance of the height of the fullbacks was really important to this play, and the correct timing. And here we'll see them get it exactly right, but we'll also see the relationships between the 10s and the 9. And in particular, you'll see one of the 10 gets in between the lines in seam 2 and makes it very difficult to defend, a very difficult place to defend, and creates a lot of indecision for the fullback on Pachuca. And that's what you want to create in these situations. We create these formats ultimately to create indecision with the other team. And there was so much indecision because we had so many numbers in the center of the park. We had a lot of width coming from our fullbacks. And ultimately, we came inside, some central combination. We found the ball outside with the right timing of the fullbacks, and an exceptional quality of technique for the cross. And, you know, when you have the situation where you're starting with so many numbers centrally, then when the ball goes out wide, it's easy to get numbers in the box. And you see that almost executing to perfection. If we had a goal, it would have been perfection.
Yeah, and if you see the clip that we have of their build-up structure and how they were looking to do some of the things you've highlighted.
Yep. And we see this happening. We saw this repeated a number of times on finishing on the left side of the field, but both fullbacks giving width. And here you see, look how much space this fullback has, and the correct timing to be able to come in and hit that cross the first time is just absolutely phenomenal. And I want to show just how narrow, if you take a snapshot right now of where the numbers are in the center of the pitch, right now, you can see the perfect lines, 2, 2, 2, and here comes the ball into the 10. Breaks a line, small combination, gets the ball out wide. This is amazing. Four runners into the box.
Yeah, as the ball gets wide, you can then, like the point you were just highlighting, you can see how narrow, especially the 2 10s and the 2 9s get to each other. So they're able to be close within close proximity and play those passes and those combinations, which against quite a narrow and compact Pachuca defense.
We see the right side of 10 on the ball, but I think it's important to show the weak side 10 actually in the pocket. And the weak side 10 is the one that is creating the indecision for the right-sided fullback on Pachuca. Because of where the positioning of the 10 is, the fullback has to stay narrow, which creates so much space for Salzburg, a left fullback.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned quite a lot in the game how the positioning and the relationship of the 2 9s against the Pachuca centre-backs, how that created a decision for the Pachuca fullback to make in being able to deal with the space that was being afforded in to the Salzburg fullback.
Yeah, exactly. Because if Salzburg, if that the fullback on Pachuca decided to be, I guess, scared or worried or to take a more defensive shape towards the fullback, what would have happened is we would have created a lot of space then between the center back and the fullback, in which, you know, the 10 or the 9 could exploit. But what we did really well here is actually in those situations where I actually thought that Pachuca did well in their solidarity, keeping equal distance between the lines as their defensive structure, because I do think that it's very difficult when you see this much space out wide to just stay with your back line and say, this is our structure, this is our solidarity. And I think for the majority of the game, it paid off. And in this instance, you know, we don't see a goal, but we see an attack that could have ended up in a goal.
So the defensive structure of Pachuca, how they had to come across to one side, also afforded Salzburg to have that extra space on the left-hand side and use the fullback.
Yes, I mean, we talked about it being narrow, basically completely in the central channel. But even here, when Salzburg moves the ball out to the right, Pachuca so dominant on this side, and you actually see the whole side of the team. Look here. This player is almost halfway. We have all of the players, both Salzburg and Pachuca players, on this half of the field. In their third, we're not talking about this being the middle third of the pitch. We're talking this being. So of course, when it comes out, look at all this space here. All this space here. But again, I spoke about this fullback and the decision making. The worst decision making that this player can make right now is to care about what's happening here. Because what happens here, here, here. So the solidarity here in the back line, I think is right. I think in this situation, it just shows in this formation, when you have a 4-2-2-2, so narrow, and then it creates the defense to be so narrow as well. Space out wide, exploiting it with the right timing, runs in the box, leads to a successful attack.
So Tobin, the second theme that we saw that particularly impressed us from Salzburg was their ability to counter-press really quickly, get a lot of bodies around the ball, very urgently with a lot of players. So talk to us a bit more about that and what you thought.
Yeah, I mean, we know Salzburg's identity is high energy, high pressing, but organized pressing. In this clip, what we're gonna see is actually more this, what I would say their identity, their DNA when they lose the ball, the discipline to win it back immediately, and that comes from every player on the pitch. But what I think is most impressive about this style of pressing is that it's a sustained press. A lot of times in this tournament, you know, we've seen like pressing and covering, like these actions that are these one actions, and then you'll see another player, another action. But this is collective pressing around the pitch where everybody's honed into the triggers. The body language of every single player is on their front foot. It's hungry, it's looking around, and they know that if the first press isn't successful, it actually is successful in their minds. But I think if the first press isn't successful, meaning if they hadn't won the ball back yet, it's a sustained press. It's the next press. It's the next press. It could go 4 phases of pressing, one player pressing the ball, obviously the whole team in the shape of pressing the ball, but it's phenomenal to watch. In this clip, we'll see a turnover and their attitude towards pressing, but also organizational pressing in an organized shape, knowing the triggers. Absolutely phenomenal. Salzburg, it was a joy to watch the type of pressing, the type of attitude that all of these players collectively shared. And you can see the special ones, right? You can see the players that can understand it very, very quickly. And those are your leaders on the pitch. Those are the ones that when you're a bit unsure in those pressing moments, that they're dictating it. They're almost like that one step ahead of everyone else. You know, Pachuca, like in a lot of instances, they dealt with it very well. This was an opportunity where you see them almost feel like at times that they regained the ball, where they're like, okay, we got it back. And then there's another one. And that's that sustained press, especially when the ball is still in the area that you can do a quick press. Salzburg, they are relentless. And we saw a number of times just like almost Pacheco just giving the ball back to them and we look around, there's absolutely no options. You're just swarmed by Salzburg players. So just phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, and we got a clip, and this was really early in the game, but this was something that we saw repeatedly, especially in the first half.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at the clip and see what you think.
So here, obviously, quite comfortable in possession. Middle third of the pitch. Great tackle. And then immediately you just see this change of pace. In my opinion, you think like, oh, that's like defensively, but it's like, no, I want the ball back. You know, like I want to attack. And sometimes your best form of attack is actually losing the ball in these areas because they create a little bit of chaos, and then you're able to pounce, and then you're able to create some phenomenal transition opportunities. But you just see the attitude. It's almost like, I think for a lot of teams, you know, you give up the ball, you're like a little bit disappointed. This team, you understand it's football, you're going to turn over the ball. And it's almost like there's not even a line between attacking and defending with this team. It's just all part of one motion. And you can tell when everyone's in sync doing it because it feels like there's nowhere to breathe.
Yeah, one thing you highlighted, it's actually a cool link between the first topic that we saw in terms of their in-possession structure, how much it contributes to what they can then do out of possession. Absolutely. So if all the players are close together, they are basically work really well connected, how that then impacts them when they lose the ball, being close together again, able to win the ball back quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure if we look at all the distance between the lines, when it comes to organization, the way that you're able to be a great pressing team is actually if you're organized offensively in the correct positions. And the distances between the lines, between the players, it's never huge. They're all so connected. And especially if you look at the spine of Salzburg. I mean, if you turn over the ball, there's one player there, there's two players there, there's three players there. So the structure really works for this style of team. And the players, we can't forget what players are made in Salzburg. I mean, these are young players. These are players that are hungry. I think it's for the style of this play. You need young, energetic players that are willing to run, and also like an organized structure. I think these players are extremely disciplined, and it's only through the pressing. I mean, I always say an unorganized press, it's ugly. It looks so disconnected. It's so easy to play through. An organized press, it's impossible. It's impossible to play through.